So this one is for the ladies. Have you been invited to join a fantasy football league? Because I have. So how do I get ahead of Jason Feinberg and Mike Davis? Because, you know, they are probably my biggest competitors. So right now we have Ian Ritchie from Full Time Fantasy to give us all the details about what I should look out for to make the best picks. Because I have not won the past 2 years, not even close. So I want to get close this year.
All right.
So Ian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about you. We have a women-specific draft situation going on. Talk about that.
We do. We host a lot of drafts at Circa for the Fantasy Football World Championships and the Las Vegas Fantasy Championships. And Circa has been very supportive of drafts and us hosting folks there. And, we really felt strongly about creating a women's series. So women feel comfortable understanding how to play fantasy, understanding how to draft, not afraid to ask questions, not afraid to make mistakes. And so we put together the women's series of drafts live at Circa this Wednesday and Thursday, the 20th and 21st, and then the following week at the 28th online for women to draft with each other, ask questions from each other, and kind of lean on each other so everybody can have a team. And it's just a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun and a safe space to do it, because a lot of the men, no shade, take it very seriously. So you don't want to jump in.
Yeah, man, you don't want to jump in, but top of the morning. It's your boy B Jizzle. We are live back in the lab, and today's show is for the ladies. That's right, man. We care so much about fantasy football. We're going to highlight women here today as we have a returning visitor. So we're streaming live on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Shout out to all of the professionals, because my guest today is also on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if you're tapping in with me right now, do me a favor. Let me know the comments are working, especially if you're a woman and playing a fantasy football league. Let me know your team name down there, because I have a special guest we're getting ready to bring to the show. So just to kind of kick things off, have you seen that video coming in right there? That's the OG, man. I met the OG, Ian Ritchie, that guy that was talking there on the intro video. Ian Ritchie actually lives up here in the Pacific Northwest. He is the world champion fantasy football dude. He won the world championships one year, and he's specifically been working out there with Circa. So special shout out to my guy, Ian Ritchie. I got to see him at the Super Bowl out there when the Chiefs and the Niners were playing at Circa, where he was talking about that. But that ties into what we're talking about today is women in fantasy sports. And I'll put those links down there in the comments below today, so that way y'all can check it out. We see everybody tapping in. What's up, Lee? We got the men tapping in. How we doing today? What up, Top? I see you, baby. Hey, there she goes. You see her face on Built Different Group. She's our July Gym Rat of the Month, and she's playing in our first fantasy football for women. That's right. And our special guest is returning today. Her name is Tiffeany from First and 10 and LLC. She says she's down in Southern California where it never rains and the weather's great.
Hey, good morning.
Doing, Tiffeany? Good morning. How we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so excited about this season and talk a little bit about fantasy football and why ladies should really get themselves involved and start understanding the game at a basic level.
That's what's up. It's always good to have a resident expert. So if you're tuning in, get comfortable, get your popcorn ready to learn more about Tiffeany at First and 10 LLC. She's playing in my Department of Fantasy first ever women's football league. So if you're a lady and you're tuning in today, let us know your team name down there below. We're going to highlight some women in the league, talk about women in fantasy sports. But let's get to some football last night. What'd you think about that game last night? Did you catch the game?
I did catch the game. It was exciting to see. At the end, I posted, we're going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I know I may be jumping ahead of myself, but I'm a fanatic. I'm a fan that's fanatical. And, Joe Milton looked good. Our defense looked great. It looks like we have some depth.
How about James Houston? The guy made 2 big defensive plays. They're saying he should make the 53-man roster. We got 90 guys they're trying to cut down to the 53-man roster. Is there any names on the Cowboys that that you think might not make the team? Are you paying attention to that type of stuff, or are you ready for this 53-man roster to just come out so we can say who's on the team?
Yeah, I'm just ready for that 53-man roster to come out. Best of luck to all they put it all out there yesterday. If we don't pick them up, somebody might, but I'm just ready for that 53-man roster so I can just start buying jerseys and cheering for my team.
Yeah, not only that, we'll know which wide receivers are going to make it, which running backs are going to make it. And before we get too far into depth today, for the women, as a Cowboy fan, do you recommend drafting all the Cowboys, especially if you're playing fantasy football for the first time, let me get your perspective on that. Do you recommend drafting any Cowboys, or are you drafting any of the Dallas Cowboys this season?
My recommendation is to have variety. I know it may be tempting because that's who you know to draft your whole team, but you have to think about bye weeks. You got to think about you got to think about you got to think about how they play, because that's how you're thinking about how you're going to get points. And so instead of picking with your heart, you got to pick with a little bit of strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
And for our new folks, that's great advice. That was what I was trying to get at. And you picked that up just as soon as I put it down. Don't draft all the Cowboys in your first league because you like your team. We get it. That's natural. But there's this thing called bye week, and we'll get to that here a little bit later in the show here today. But we're kicking this off for women in fantasy football. I was doing some research for today's show, and I found that this women's fantasy football league, that link is on the timeline on Built Different Group, and it's in the comments today. This women's league has been around for 10 years playing. When did you first start playing fantasy football, Tiffany? If you could share with us, how did you and when did you begin playing fantasy football?
Man, I want to say, it was years ago, but it was in a office group, and I've always been a little hesitant to play because it was hard for me to want the Eagles quarterback to do well as a Cowboys fan, right? But I learned how to compartmentalize, right? So my first year, I got really, really lucky, and I paid attention, and I happened to win, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So
you won your first year you played?
The first year I played in the office, I won the pot.
She's a natural. That's what I'm talking about. You got to take advice from Tiffany. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and as I started creating this business to help women learn more about football, I found that it's a great way to get your foot in the door. When people often speak from, I don't know where they're speaking from, but it's not from a place of knowledge. But when you play fantasy football, it kind of forces you to look at statistics and look at, okay, well, they say that Dak Prescott is not a good quarterback, but his stats say otherwise. Where are you getting this information from? And as a woman, you can pull that out of your hat because you're getting your notifications. You see how Dak did. You see how he stacks up statistically against the other quarterbacks. So it helps you speak from a place of knowledge versus what the folks out there are saying.
I got you 100%. I placed her link down there in the comments below. This is to her website. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. As we get back to this ESPN article, I was like, because I started playing fantasy in 2009. Mm-hmm. So if you're tuning in here today, put your year that you started down there below. I remember that was the first year RedZone. You watch RedZone on Sunday? NFL
Sometimes,
RedZone?
yes.
Sometimes, yeah. I had watched probably RedZone for like 7 years straight every Sunday, while I was still on active duty, just for that fantasy aspect. So, but drop in the comments down there below. Let us know how long you've been playing fantasy football. But not only did you start playing fantasy football, you actually created articles, and you created a blog. You created a business. You created, help for other women getting into fantasy football. And you've got your own, or I think it's your own event that's coming up, the Sip and Sack here this fall, correct?
Yeah, I'm so excited about Sip and Sack because it kicks off the season. It's the first Saturday of the football season in the Inland Empire in Temecula, California. Two of my favorite things, I found a way to combine them: football and wine. And it's ladies only. There'll be snacks, we'll have food, and we'll be playing a board game tournament. There'll be prizes. I'm super excited about that. Anyone who lives anywhere close to this area should come out. And it's just for the ladies though, fellas. I've gotten some inquiries from the men. This one is not for you. It's just for the ladies. And it's just a great way to come together in a safe space and have fun while you learn. You're not even going to realize you're learning about football. We're going to be having so much fun.
Right. So for women that are paying attention, and I've shared this link in the article below, they've been playing for 10 years. What are some of the byproducts of fantasy football? Women will learn a lot about the game. Not only will you learn a lot about, your team and other players and other teams and things like that, but is there any other byproducts that you get from being in fantasy football leagues? Like, is there camaraderie? Is there friendships built? Is there, lifelong partnerships or things like that? I mean, do you build good relationships as a result through fantasy football as well?
Absolutely. And I'll just give you an example. I held an event in Oxnard, California, where our Cowboys have training camp. And one of the ladies was called in by a friend of ours and of hers and didn't know anything about fantasy football. And right before the draft, she came and she started asking me all these questions. I'm like, oh, hold up.
All right.
But 2 seasons later, she became the winner of the league. And it just shows you, if you put some effort in, take the time to, check your bye weeks, check your players, check your injuries, do the work. It will yield great results. And we've all become fantasy football friends as a result. It's a great way to really meet people and have a good time in a competitive and fun way. And I like to say that I help people win because I do give them all the tools that they need to win.
I heard that. That. Shout out to Sharon, new name checking in here. It says, been playing for 2 years, one league in second place and another last year. Hey, maybe y'all need to hang out. We got the winner's circle going on here today. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've created a lot of relationships, at least from the men's perspective. I know women kind of the same thing. You're going to learn more about the game. It's fun. You pay attention. You have to kind of be a fan of football, because I know there is a lot of Cowboy fans. I remember as I started out on social media, fans would hate on me saying, you ain't no real fan. You ain't no diehard Cowboys fan because you root for other players on other teams or fantasy football. What kind of advice do you have for women who may be thinking like that? I don't want to pay attention to, because I know you threw in there, I'm not drafting Saquon Barkley and I'm not drafting Jalen Hurts because I feel some kind of way about the Eagles. But, would you, share with ladies what your advice is on that particular subject?
Well, really a couple of things. The way the league works, they're not a Cowboy today, but who knows? They could be a Cowboy tomorrow. You don't know, right?
Right.
That's one thing. And the other thing is, it's a great way. In life, we always have to compartmentalize. I can want my Cowboys to win, and my Cowboys can win. My Cowboys can even play the Eagles. And Saquon Barkley can still do well. Both things can be true. So I think we sometimes forget that we can have multiple scenarios in this fantasy football world. There's nothing wrong with me hoping that somebody has a good game, but still lose. It can happen. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I won't cheer for another team to win.
Right.
It's just not
exactly.
That's not,
exactly.
But for that particular player, of course, in the lineup, because let's just get to the basics right quick for women that are tapping in for the first time here today, maybe on LinkedIn or on YouTube or even on Facebook. What is some beginner advice, or no? Can you just explain in a nutshell, like what is fantasy football from a woman's perspective who's looking at it for the first time? What could you share with them today?
I think a good way to look at it is, if you could pick in your own workplace, if you could pick a super team, if you could pick like the best manager and the best person that works under you, or the best company with all of the greatest benefits, you have the opportunity as a manager of a fantasy football team to really build a super team to what's available to you. And my advice is, some of these leagues are overcrowded. And that's one thing that I would really look out for, because when you're learning for the first time, you're getting in there, it does matter, because there's only so many players that are going to perform well each week, right? And so that pot gets smaller as the league is larger, right? And so I know a lot of commissioners will just try to stack their league and make the league large. And in my opinion, that's one thing to look out for. You want a nice measured league. I like to keep my leagues no larger than 12. Some people have bigger leagues, but I like to make sure that everybody has a good shot of getting good players.
Right. So fantasy football in 140 characters is less. If somebody never knew, how would you explain fantasy football to somebody who doesn't know anything about it today? It's a game of blah, blah, blah. How would you explain that to first-time listeners today?
Create your own super league of super players that you believe have the ability to perform and help you win. That's it. Create your own super league.
And how do the players specifically win? And this, I'm kind of being rhetorical here, so that way folks are tuning in today can understand. How does the game, like, how do you win each week? How does your super team win each week?
I want to make sure I understand what you mean. Do you mean scoring wise?
Yeah, scoring wise. Like,
so,
how do you determine who wins each week? Like, can you explain that portion of the game?
Right. So, for example, in my league, I make sure that defense, when the defense scores, you get good points for that, right? So you need to make sure you understand your league and how the scoring process works. And I know that in ESPN, if you click on the click in the league section and look under scoring, you should be able to see exactly how the scoring works. So that you want to find out when you enter a league what's going to give you the most points. So you can have a good quarterback. But you also, if you're in a league that gives you points for defense, you want to make sure that are good points for defense. You want to know that as well. So that's the first thing you want to do is make sure you understand how the scoring system in your league works.
Yeah. So for like standard PPR and things like that, I share all of this stuff, especially the beginner language. This is a Patreon exclusive that I got going on. Tiffany played in my Top Fan League from Built Different Groups. So shout out to everybody on Built Different Groups. She played in our league last year. She's back. You know, we introduced her to everybody here last year on Built Different Group with First and 10, and she's back because this season, I really believe that there's some smarter women and men out there. Like, women are dominating the game. And it, you know, like you said, you came in the first season and won, you know, and most men think most women don't know much about football. You know, what kind of advice do you have for men out there that are still thinking women don't know a lot of football?
Well, you know, I say this. Football knowledge is not inherited, it's learned. This is what I tell the ladies in my group all the time. And so if you have an interest in learning it, it's certainly teachable. You know, there are at least four or five women these days that are coaching, even in the NFL in some capacity. There are women tackle football leagues out there, right? So we have the ability to understand the game. And don't doubt yourself. And if there are men out there who think that there are women who don't know and understand the game, that's okay. I'm not here to change your mind. But what I do think is that you have to understand that it's a teachable game. And people who've played do have a different kind of understanding. If you've had the ability to play, you know, you do have a different kind of understanding of the game. I will never question or doubt that. Right. That folks who have had the ability to play do have a different level of understanding, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to understand if you're a woman.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. And so let's kind of switch a little bit, because what's in the name? You know, a lot of folks put a lot of thought into their fantasy football names. And I see, you know, I'm returning with the same name. I see you're returning with Dak and Love, which of course he's had some babies over the last couple of years. So that's obviously there. I mean, what goes into picking a name? Or do you have any other names, or do you run with the same name? Do you play in multiple leagues, or how would you tell folks to, you know, develop their fantasy football name?
You know, make it fun. Just make it something fun. You know, I called it Dak and Love it's really a double meaning, because obviously he's growing his family. He's gotten engaged, but also I feel like he gets a lot of unnecessary hatred out there for whatever reason. And so like, this is like, I'm going to show my quarterback some love. So I'm going to put that in my fantasy name. And in another league, I'm Rowdy Rod, because Roderick is my last name. So I just like to have fun with it. You know, some folks, I have a fan of Green Bay that calls herself the Cheez-Its. You know, it's just whatever you want to do, however you want to have fun with it. Just be creative and have fun with your league name.
I like it. I like it. And especially I like CAITLYN, who's also, y'all know CAITLYN always brings the context down from Corpus Christi. She's no stranger to fantasy football. I invited her to come back in because she's a big time supporter of the content, a big member of our community here. But she, I think, by far has the best fantasy football name in the league, and it's called Big Pickin' Spending G's. You know, I actually had to go read it, and I said, that sounds familiar. You know, I was like, oh, that's Big Pimpin' Spending G's from Jay-Z. And so you could do anything with a name. And I really like Dak and Love because there are some Dak haters out there.
Yes.
And it's always good to see some fans show some love. But yeah, if you're creating your fantasy football team for the first time this season, it's a spinoff. You know, like I've kept the same name for years because I ain't got time to be creating. I play about on a minimum 4 leagues a year. How many leagues do you play in per year?
Just 2. I can't do more than 2 and also run a business.
Right. That part I understand. You know, I used to play in like 10, but now I'm like,
wow.
No, it don't make. I'm like, this is too repetitive. Like, let me get down to 4. You know, and make a couple really about the business with what we're doing here in the Department of Fantasy. And this is an exclusive on my Patreon. If I shared that link down in the comments below. There's a couple of ways you can get my content this season, but I will be talking about our women's league with Tiffany in our league. Maybe she'll come back, maybe during the bye week. I don't know. Maybe we'll have you back up on here again to talk a little bit more about our league this season. So what are some of the players that you're really focusing on right now that you could share with the women today? Maybe let's start with running backs and then we'll go to wide receivers.
Right now, I'm hanging tight until the roster comes out. I don't recall how you do your league if we're going to know where we're at in the draft prior to starting. In my league,
no. Yeah, on the ESPN, I just have it automatically when the draft opens up 2 hours. It just randomly selects everybody's draft order. Yeah, but great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so folks do that. Folks do that different. So you know, I do mine the same day, and for running backs, I'm definitely. I think Saquon's going to do well again this year. I think CD is going to do well this year. I definitely Ashton Genty is looking really hot.
I'm going after him in all my leagues. Let me get one of the top 3 looks, and I'm going after him.
Yeah, and for the defense, because I think defense is important too. In my league, we defense gets points. So Kansas City Chiefs defense is who I'm going to pick. So I have my little list. I don't want to give away too much because I want them to be available for me when I get them out there. But yeah, I mean, my advice would be to create a list of a few different wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, defenses, in case your person or that you desire the most is gone by the time it gets to you.
Yeah, I actually got Ashton Genty ranked. He's the #1 running back that I'm going after this year. Shout out to everybody on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn newsletter shared on every Tuesday. I'll be sharing more about our league along with Tiffany here later this season, but you can check that out. That link is in the comments. I rank my top 5 receivers and running backs, as you heard First and TEN LLC say right here. Ashton Genty, yeah, big time. He's got Pete Carroll down there now. You know, Pete's going to bring the best out of his players. I think he had a pretty good preseason game. And then, oh, by the way, the Cowboys, we got to find out, can we stop the run when it comes to Ashton Genty as we visit the Las Vegas Raiders in November? And I'm excited about that. So what about the wide receivers? You said CeeDee Lamb, and what were the other receivers you were talking about? I'm sorry.
Oh, hold, his name is escaping me right now for the Bengals.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah. I know who you're talking about. Man, I can't think of his name either. But I sure did rank him in my PPR rankings. You're talking about Jamar Chase.
Yes.
That's who you're talking about. Yes.
I'm trying not to get too many Chiefs, but I know that Rice is going to be a big target for Mahomes this year.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I got Jamar Chase, man. He was fantasy. Yeah, he was fantasy gold last year. I mean, a lot of people were complaining early about drafting him, like, Jamar's screwing me over again. But man, he finished that season out with all those catches, all those yards, finished top dog. But I think he'll have a slight regress because let me see, where did I rank him at? Did I rank him at? No, I actually got I got CeeDee Lamb as going. I think CeeDee Lamb with Dak being healthy this season in any PPR league means points per reception. So you get points not only for the catch, but you also get points for the yards, and also if they score a touchdown. So if you're in a PPR league, my recommendation is just like what she said with CeeDee Lamb, not because we're Cowboy fans, because when you historically look at the data, like what you even shared, when you peel the data back, CeeDee Lamb is a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in this league, which they recently ranked him. You know, the NFL ranked him 35th out of 100 overall. And this is not even including fantasy. Do you sense a little disrespect there, or is that going to give maybe CD a little bit more motivation to come out and prove people that he's not ranked 35 out of 100?
Yeah, I mean, my thinking is he's a professional. I don't know how much he cares about the ranking, but I definitely see him proving them wrong.
Got you. And Caitlyn's
Yeah.
tapping in with a little context here. She's also in our league. She says Kyron Williams out of the Rams and tight end Trey McBride got her big wins last season. Yeah. I battled Caitlyn last season. She smoked me one week. I was like, I don't even want that smoke anymore. She knows what she's doing. Joe Tranchina is tapping in, says, thank God we won last preseason game, because teams that go winless in preseason hasn't won a Super Bowl. Well, show me a team that has won the preseason Super Bowl and the Super Bowl in the regular season. I'll wait. But let's get back to some fantasy football as we get back to First and 10 LLC. So your Sip and Sack event is going down. And are there tickets still available, or how can we tell folks to go and sign up to your Sip and Sack? Just send them to your website?
Yeah, if you go to thefootballgoddess.com, it's on the first page. You can go in and get tickets. There are tickets still available. And we will be at the Inn at Sharon in Temecula, California, the first weekend of football. So,
okay. And then folks who visit also can sign up here. You have a weekly newsletter on your website. I'm taking you share fantasy football stuff with your audience there.
Yeah. So I talk about a lot of things in that newsletter. So this week I talked a little bit about Shedeur Sanders and his debut, along with Dylan, forget his last name, the other quarterback, and his words. And I give my opinion on things. I gave my opinion on John Gruden and why I think he should stay out of the league. So different things. So we talk about football strategy too. I talked a little bit about the history of the West Coast offense. So you will learn so much if you decide that you want to subscribe to that newsletter, and it comes out every Wednesday.
Awesome. It seems you're featured here in Voyage LA.
Yeah, I was so excited for that opportunity. Voyage LA, they feature small businesses in the Los Angeles area, and they reached out to me and they said, hey, I noticed you're doing something a little different over there as far as, helping women learn about football. And, it's one of those things where football and life are so intertwined. And I try to combine that in my teaching and my learning, because many times as women, we don't feel like we can relate to football, right? But we all have a group of people who help us meet our goals, right? And that's one of the things. If I were to think of myself as the quarterback of my life, I would say, that my husband is my left tackle, right? And my therapist is my right tackle, and maybe my girlfriend is my guard. These are all these people that are helping me defeat these different obstacles in my life and help me reach my goal. So when you put it in that context, a lot of eyes open and they realize, wait, I've been in my mind playing football for a long time, because, as women, we have, the kids, we're aunts, we've got professional lives. We have all these things that we have to juggle, and you can do it alone. But when you have a team of people that will help you and block for you to get these obstacles out of your way, it makes it easier for you to meet your goals.
I agree with you 100%. Shout out to Caitlyn for bringing the context on the obstacle here with the question thrown out. Bringing the real-time context here. 2017 Cleveland Browns went undefeated in the preseason and went 0-16 in the regular season. So for all of our microwave cowboy fans that are, I knew that was coming. Yeah, great job, Caitlyn. The ladies are bringing the context here. Now, share that article in the comments for where she was featured, so that way you can check out a little bit more of that as we get ready to wind down here. So our draft is coming up next week. I know you'll be live in our room. You said you're participating in two leagues. And your other league, is that for your Sip and Sack, or is that your traditional league that you host every year for the women in your community?
Yeah, that's a separate league. The Sip and Sack will be doing a football board game amongst other games, where there's a tournament and a winner and all that good stuff. But the fantasy league is separate, and Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Just because when I started this business, I started it virtually. And so a lot of my folks can't fly from, Kentucky to for my event. So I
Got
have,
you.
yeah, so it's great to do some of the virtual stuff as well.
Yeah. No, that's what we're doing here today is virtual,
Yeah.
virtual collaboration, as which we
Yes.
talk, for folks that are trying to figure out, the social media game, you got to collaborate. And this is why it was important for me to bring, Tiffeany back from First and 10 LLC, not only because she played in my league last year, but now because of the value that she's offering our community. She's also in our chat with our women's league. She'll be providing support. We'll have her back here as a special guest. So if we got any ladies tapping in, you got questions right now for Tiffeany, before we get out of here, we'll take a few minutes of questions as we wrap up, maybe talk about some more Cowboys content. Is there anything else you'd like to share with with the community of what's going on, or maybe anything that they need to know that you'd like to share?
I just appreciate your platform here, for Cowboys fans. You always keep it 100 all the way real. And even if I can't bounce in and stay for the whole time, I'm like, oh, great point. And for anyone out there who takes the time to come and watch, be generous, give out some points while you're at it. I'm just saying, if you're taking in the information, and just know that Barry didn't ask me to say it, but as someone who puts information out there on the internet, it's important to support your folks that are out here doing the research and giving you this information.
Thank you. And it's exciting because I love meeting other Cowboy fans that have other things going on. And, I know women in fantasy sports. I remember like when I shared the intro video coming in, if you caught that, with Ian Ritchie, who's a national fantasy football. Have you met Ian? Are you familiar with Ian? I've never met Ian, no. Yeah. So it was in 2016. I was here at Washington State at the Capitol. And this is where I met Ian, because they were having fantasy football hearings on determining in the state of Washington if they were going to allow online gambling. And this was in 2016. And then you fast forward about 5-6 years later, me and Ian kept in contact. He's on LinkedIn. So shout out to Ian on LinkedIn. He's also with Circa Sports. You've seen that intro coming in. I'll share that link in the comments. So that way you guys can go check it out. They got a big thing push for women's fantasy, where they're teaching women how to draft on fantasy platforms to make it fun. And it's for beginners. Nobody's going to be bashing you here because you don't know anything. That's not the type of environment. But anyway, I got to meet Ian Ritchie at the state capitol while they were determining the Washington state laws, because, everybody can't gamble online. But now in the state of Washington, you can go into a casino and bet at the BetMGM kiosk or at the Caesars kiosks and things like that. But you're down there in California. So our folks, are they going in, and do you guys have casinos? Yeah, got. We
have casinos, but online gambling was voted against here
in California.
So in my league, we have a prize for people who perform well.
Gotcha.
And it's not a monetary prize, right?
Should have just left it at that, but I got you. All right. Kelly says Tiff should join us tomorrow for our 53-man roster show. You're familiar with Kels? Have you seen Kels here on the platform?
No.
Yeah.
I would have loved to if I was in town. I'm out of town tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, good deal. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you here, especially as a special guest to come on, and we'll have plenty to talk about this season, especially in our league. I don't know. We'll try to carve some schedule out. Maybe we could do it once a week. I don't know. Maybe once a month, something like that. But I know folks will see you here a little bit more. And I'm excited about this fantasy football because I got all my drafts coming up. I scheduled all my drafts on one day because I'm like, let's just get it done.
Smart.
And get it over with. Yeah. You're in 2. I'm in 4. I think Kel said she had made a comment in here. She played in up to 14 leagues.
Oh my.
Yeah. I'm like, girl, that is way too much. Where'd that comment go? Somewhere on there. I can't find it. But yeah, so if you're playing fantasy football for the first time this season, you're on Built Different Group, or if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're on YouTube, make sure you just check the links in the comments below. So that way you can find First and 10 LLC on the web. How can they connect with you on social media? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anything like that?
Yeah, so I have a women's only group. We learn new things about football every day. Okay. And it is, facebook.com/groups/football is for women. And it's a ladies only group. And if you're ever in doubt about where to find me, you can always go to the website. All the social media links are at thefootballgoddess.com as well.
Got you. And I'm sharing your profile link here in the comments. As you see, we got your Facebook profile up with the blue check. So that way it's her. She's official like a whistle. She's been official on the show here today. It's been all about women. And, you know, I believe there's a lot of smart women out there that not only know the game of football, but also know the game of fantasy football. And just like Ian Ritchie has won it. I don't know, has there ever been a fantasy football woman that's won the fantasy football championship, like the national football championships or anything like that? Do you know of any?
I don't have any knowledge of a woman winning the national.
Is there any other women before we get out here today that you could recommend that you also follow and maybe you pay attention to that's in your industry or in the fantasy football realm?
Oh, so the fantasy football realm, not quite, but there's so many women's groups out there for football. There's the Black Women Love Football group. There's Hits and Heels. It's an amazing podcast run by a woman who's also a football coach with an offensive coordinator for a high school football team. So there's so many great women out there that understand the game and that are part of football. But as far as fantasy football goes, I'm not sure of a lot of other women who do women's only groups, but here I am if you need me.
Hey, that's why we got her here. And then definitely before we get out of here, you said you might be going to the Chiefs game. Are you a Taylor Swift fan by chance?
I love all powerful, strong woman, but my better half is a Chiefs fan.
Oh,
so we decided that we wanted to kill two birds with one stone.
I get it, because a lot of folks don't know, but before Taylor Swift did it, actually Jessica Simpson did it. So just know, Chiefs fans, y'all ain't starting any trends here. Everybody knows the Cowboys said the trends. So shout out to all of our Simpsons. And ain't no what did they call Jessica Simpson? Because I don't listen to neither of them. Like they called Taylor the Swifties. We didn't call the Cowboy fans. That wasn't a thing back then, even with women. They didn't call them the Simpsons or anything like that because there's a show.
No. As a woman in football, though, I have to say that I've studied the Swift bump and it's real. So any woman that's helping a lot of women want to learn more about football, I'm 1,000% more. I don't care what their reasonings are. If they want to learn more about football, I'm down with that. And yeah, there's been a real Swiftie bump of her fans wanting to learn more because it's something that she's interested in, and I'm here for it.
Right. And as soon as we bring up Taylor Swift, we got fans tapping in. Shout out to Antonio on YouTube. He says Swifties for life. Hey, just remember Jessica Simpson did it here first and built different group. We did it here first here too with First and 10 LLC. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm looking forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We appreciate everybody on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube that joined us today. Make sure you use hashtag replay if you watch this after the fact and let us know your fantasy football team. I really like the names that are out there, like Big Spit, Big Picking, Spending G's. Like that's like diabolical. That's crazy work. Shout out to my girl CAITLYN. But we'll see y'all in the gym with my girl Tiffeany from First and 10 LLC on the next episode.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it a night, the party's over. And tomorrow and next year starts the same old thing again.